Hello everyone. In the last lecture, we already defined what are called relations. So relations are basically subset of cross products, and intuitively we say that we are trying to relate a pair of elements or a tuple of elements. And we define what are called cross products, binary relations, and also have certain kind of types of relations that we define is reflexive, symmetric, transitive, and antisymmetric. And we have also seen that this reflexive, symmetric, and transitive, these three particular category of relations form an equivalence class or equivalence relations. Primarily because of the fact that it relates every element with itself, it relates every element with the others, and vice versa due to symmetry. And due to transitivity, the relation can be transferred via a third element, which is x related to y related to z, means x is also related to z. We have also introduced a very basic concept, that antisymmetric notions of relation, which says that instead of trying to tell me everything is equivalent as per relation rho, can I try to order something that I will try to say I only can take pair xy or can take pair yx. If those are different, in antisymmetry restrict us to tell that whether if xy and xy are different, then I cannot take both because it means x to y. So it tries to give some order. Either you order it by xy and take it, or you order it by yx and take it, but don't take both. It means the same. So with that, we define certain we gave some examples of certain relations, and also define what are called equivalence relations, and give an example and say that the property of the equivalence relation says that either your equivalence classes should be disjoint, or your equivalence class, if you find that two of the elements from a different equivalence class are also related, then all these classes merged and gets into a same class. So either the classes are same, every elements are equivalent or related to every other element, or two classes are different sets of elements, neither of them is related to the other set elements. And we have seen that how it is. So this property particularly that I have just discussed is trying to say that it induces a partition, a disjoint partition of the set that we started with. However, this is one kind of relation and the notions of equivalence. The other notions that we have left out is the ordering notions, which we already seen that we can make it by introducing the antisymmetric rule. And as you have thought correctly, that we can define something called as a partial order. It is a relation between two elements of the same set, A cross A, that is a subset of A cross A, if it is reflexive, antisymmetric, and transitive. See, what do we change here? We change the symmetry to antisymmetry from the equivalence relation and make it as a partial ordering. So as you can remember now, that ordering means that either I take x followed by y, or I take y followed by x, but not both, because taking both essentially means the elements x and y are same. That is the antisymmetric property. So all the elements inside it, so an element itself, now you try to justify with the intuition of the order. The element itself is ordered with itself, which is the reflexive. The element itself is ordered with some other, so x followed by y. And the element itself ordered with some other, and the other element with some third one, transfers that order to the first to third element, which is the transitivity. So we call this set comma rho, this is a partial order set, the definition, and in short we call as poset. So the set A using the relation rho induces a partial order over the set A, where we could order the elements in such a way so if the reflexive, symmetry, antisymmetric, and transitive, these three relation holds. Straightway an example. So let us say that I have a set S which is of 1, 2, 3, and I define my relation rho as A is a subset of B. Then I take this pair, A is a subset of B, where AB is the power set of S. So what will be the power set of S? Every possible subsets will be there in the power set. So it means null 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3. So A and B can be any one of those elements of the power set. So it can be any one of those subsets. So I say an A is a subset of B by this relation, and I say that this is a poset, because if you try to see the reflexive, A is a subset of itself. This antisymmetric nature, if A is a subset of B and B is a subset of A, then A is equal to B in terms of the set notation. Transitive, if A is a subset of B, B is a subset of C, then A is obviously a subset of C. So therefore, this relation over the power set of S defines a partial order relation, or I say that PS rho equivalently, since I have taken the relation as subset, I can say that the PS, the set of all subsets of 1, 2, 3 with the relation less than equal to is a poset. So essentially the set of all subsets in the universe with the relation less than equal to is a poset. And this is just for a definition purpose. Since this is a poset, this is also a poset. Just I reverse the subset and tell it as a superset. That means A is a superset of B if B is a subset of A. This is also a poset, and we call it dual of the poset, because this is just the dual of that operation. So we will use the direct poset in our lecture. So dual of the poset is just for a definition purpose. Whenever we will try to say poset, we will directly say it. Now an interesting relation. Since we are trying to induce certain kind of relation or order, it means that we try to say that which element is following which element. So let's say A rho is a poset. So rho is the relation which is a partial order relation, and we have three elements in the set A, P, Q, R. We say Q as the cover for P, and we denote it as P just preceded by Q. So P preceded by Q. Q is a cover of P. If we have relation PQ belongs to this, remember this is a partial order relation, so antisymmetry holds. If P and Q are different, then I have this relation. I will not have Q comma P relation here. So I can take either of them or neither to have antisymmetry going. So this means that P covered by Q. If no element exists such that P is a cover of R and R is a cover of Q, that is P is related to R and R is related to Q. See, due to transitivity, even if P is related to R and R is related to Q, then P and Q should be related and must be present in the partial order set. That I do not have any reservation on that. But I only have reservation to say that if that is the case, that PR is also present and RQ is also present, and hence PQ is also present, these three are the present, then Q is not a cover of P. Q should be only a cover of P if I can find no element which can put in the middle to have a relationship via someone. So this cover, when we try to define certain order, as the name suggests, it's a partial order. So this cover says that which is my next element in that order. So many a times we try to order certain elements and try to see which is the next element in that order. Suppose in a set of integers, you can also see that the less than equal to relation, if you see that less than equal to relation is a poset, because it is reflexive definitely, less than equal to relation over a set of integers, transitive definitely, antisymmetric because x less than equal to y and y less than equal to x means x equal to y. So therefore, if I say that which is the cover of which element, so 2 is the cover for 1, 3 is the cover for 2, because it is immediately next to it. So 3 is not the cover for 1, though 1 and 3 are related, because 1 is definitely less than equal to 3, but 3 is not the cover for 1. We will see more examples to illustrate this. And due to this, we could build up certain kind of this ordering or relationship diagram, which we call as Hasse diagram. So Hasse diagram says that it is just a directed acyclic graph. Directed because any relation, any elements in the relation pair, I can put a direct edge between those two elements. So Q is a cover of P means there is a direct edge from P to Q. And it's a graph, it means that it has nodes and directed edges. So nodes are the elements of the set, edges are the covers. One, if someone is a cover of the other, from that other I have a directed arrow to that particular cover. So I have directed edges from P to Q whenever PQ is a relation, PQ is an element in the relation and Q is directly covering P. So since we have already have an example of a poset with a subset relation, so let us see how the Hasse diagram will look like. Since you can find here that null set is a subset of 1, null set is a subset of 2, null set is a subset of 3. Null set is also a subset of 1 to 2. Similarly, subset 1 is also a subset of 1 to 3. But if you try to see the direct cover, 1 and 1 2 are directly related. 1 and 1 to 3 are related, however, it has a transitive relation going via 1 2 or via 1 3. So therefore, I will not put a direct edge from 1 and 1 to 3 because I can put an edge via someone, so I will put there. However, 1 2 is a direct cover of 1 because there is no other element which is where for which 1 is a subset and that element is a subset of 1 2. That is not the case. Similarly, if you see 2 and 1 3, there is no edge because 2 and 1 3 are not related. 2 is not a subset of 1 3. The same case here happens. So same case happens for 1 2 and 3. There is no edge from 3 to 1 2 because 3 is not a subset of 1 2. So therefore, I will try to draw this diagram which we call as Hasse diagram as nodes and directed edges. And in fact, this is called a directed acyclic graph. This says that I have nodes as the elements in that set. So here my set is power set of set S, which is all subsets of S. So these are the 8 subsets of S. These are my nodes. And I will have edges when this relation is valid and B is a direct cover for A. So 2 is the direct cover for null set. 3 is the direct cover for null set. 1 3 is related to null set because null set is obviously a subset of anything, but it's not directly going to 1 3. Via 1 it can go, so it's a cover via 1. So this is how we draw a diagram. Now see, although the relation already gives you certain ordering due to covers and all, this pictorially shows you what do we mean by ordering. So I will now say that with the relation subset, I have null set to 1 to 1 2 to 1 to 3. Similarly, null set to 1 to 1 3 and 1 to 3. See that there could be many sets of paths you can say in this particular diagram, which with respect to the relation that I define, that is subset relation, every one of them will give you something, some particular order to go. But we cannot make everyone in a single chain or a single order because 1 is not related to 2. So there is no way to go from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. Similarly, 2 is not related to 1 3. So therefore, it gives you partial orders or paths with subset of elements in that path, not everything together in a single path. So that's why such kind of relation, defining such kind of relation is defining an order. So we call such kind of relations as partial orders. However, on contrary to this, we can also define total order. When we can say a poset is a total or a relation, a row, and a row is a poset, row is a total order. When every element, either I can have a directed edge from x to y or I can have a directed edge from 1 to x. So every element follows some edges to some other elements. That's why we could, for every element, to every other elements we have an edge, then we could have a total order. So we can start from an element, since for all xy we have either xy or yx coming in the set, so I can go, so this element should be connected to everyone, so anyone I choose, then anyone I choose, then anyone I choose, and can travel till I exhaust all the elements. So that gives me a linear order for all the elements, and it is called a total order. So the difference here is that though the reflexive, antisymmetric and transitive properties are valid, but in total order I could have either xy or yx to be there in the relation, whereas in partial order I could have nothing. Yx and xy both I could eliminate. Okay, it's the case for 2 and 1, 3. See, I do not have any edges from 2 to 1, 3 as well as 1, 3 to 2. So there is no relation from between 2 and 1, 3. Whereas in total order I should have some between every pair of every elements x and y. Then only I can produce it into a uniform or single order, which is called a linear order. That's the difference. So in this lecture and in future slides also, we will only consider about partial order, because that is a very interesting scenario where we could define. Now let me give you a practical example why people tried to think of such kind of a partial order or poset structure and such kind of a relation. It is due to the case that you cannot always linearly order everything, because let's say the points in two-dimensional plane, you cannot say the point 1, 2 is dominated by some other point, say 3, 1. No one is more, no one is less, right? So therefore, you need to order the subset of points, not all, depending on the dominance, that where both x and y are more than the other point, I say that this point is of higher coordinate than others. For example, I define that higher as this way. So therefore, not always I could compare between two sets of elements in a particular two elements from a particular set or from a cross product of a set. Hence, we need such kind of an order called partial order to reason about those points and the system. Let us see what are the properties of partial order that we can formulate. Maximal element. So as you can, if you are already conversant with this Hasse diagram, then you can see that it will be much more clearer that, see, there is one element from where you cannot go anywhere, and there is one element from that element you cannot reach from anywhere. So that element kind of is the start element, and that element is the finishing element. Apart from that, all other elements has outgoing edges or incoming edges. There are only one element which has only outgoing edge, and there is only one element which has only one incoming edge. That governs us to define which is called maximal and minimal element. As the maximal element says that an element x is called maximal if for all other elements, if a is not equal to x, then from x to a there could not be any relation. X could not be related to a. So x to a edge is not present. Therefore, from x to any other element there is no outgoing edge. That means this one is the maximal element. In other words, you can also say if there exists an outgoing edge, then it is itself. By the way, due to reflexivity property, each subset has an edge to itself. So the self loop I have not drawn here, because the edges are just the relations, are quantifying the relations. So 2 is related to 2, 3, I put an edge. So 2 is also related to 2. So every particular node has a self loop due to reflexivity. Every particular node is related to itself. So therefore, this property can also be written as formally that if such an A exists where I can put an edge, then that is myself. So that is the maximal element. If any outgoing edge is possible, it is not possible except me. Minimal element is the same, just the dual concept of the other. So this should be minimal. There is a mistake. For all b, if b is not equal to y, I say an element y to be minimal. If b is not equal to y, I will not find any incoming edge to B. That means any element B that will relate to Y. Okay. So similarly here we can say that there exists B belongs to A if I can have an incoming edge that is from myself. Okay. Due to the self loop, due to reflexivity property of partial orders. Example, as I already shown you, that the minimal element is null set in the poset of power set with a subset relation. So, and the maximal element is the whole set itself. With that, let us come to an interesting property that if A rho is a poset and A is finite, then A has both a maximal and a minimal element. Let us try to prove one because the other one is just a dual of the other. So, we will try to prove that if A rho is a poset and A is finite, then A has a maximal element. So, if A has only, since A is a finite, so what we need to prove here? We need to prove here at least one element is there in A. And if there are more elements, there could not be two or more elements which could be maximal. So, what we want to do here is as follows, that if there is only one element, let's say A1 belongs to A, then that element has to be maximal. There is no other way. Because if there is only one element, there is only one relation possible, that is to itself due to reflexivity. Now, if A has more than one element, then I claim that, let's say there are two elements which are maximal. Now look at the definition. Doesn't it contradict? Because let's say A1 and A2 are maximal. Then if A1 is maximal, for all other elements, it will have only incoming edge. And if A2 is maximal, for all other elements, it will have only incoming edge. So therefore, such two different things cannot exist. So, unless both of them are equal. So therefore, it will only have a maximal element. Similarly, for the minimal case, you can already intuitively prove that it will have a minimal element. Least element. So, if A rho is a poset, an element is said to be a least element, that for all A in that set, I can relate X to A. So again, in this example that we have already shown, you can see that null set can be related to every other element. See here, the difference is that if I do not allow this null set also, then my 1, 2, 3 would be my least elements, because is my minimal elements, but there is no least element. Try to understand the difference between minimal and least element. Minimal element says that I only have outgoing edges from an element. That is, that element should be related to some elements in the set. But from some other elements, I cannot reach to that. That is my minimal element. Least element says that for all elements in the set, it is related. So therefore, if I consider the power set with subset relation without the null set, then I have 3 minimal elements, though I do not have any least element, because this one element is not related to 2. The least element says that it should be related to everyone else and should not have any incoming edge. So that is the primary difference between least and minimal element. So that element is called a least element if it is related to everyone else. And due to transitivity, even if it do not have directly related, but or a cover, it goes to a cover, due to transitivity, via that cover it can go to other elements. So 1 is related to 1, 2, 3, not through directly, but via 1, 3 or via 1, 2, transitively. Similarly, for maximal element, an element Y is said to be the greatest element, an element Y is said to be the greatest element if every element belonging to A such that A has a relation with Y. So there is an edge from A to Y in the Hash diagram for every element. So I'm sorry, this is wrong. There is not an edge, but these are related. That means there may be an edge, or maybe transitively all the A's are related to Y. And that's the main difference between saying the maximal and the greatest element. So let us see again the Hasse diagram to clear out our thoughts. Just a recap. So we have defined a partial order with respect to subsets of power sets. Suppose we allow everything, every power set, every subset of 1 to 3. Then we see there are elements which do not have any incoming edges. So the elements that do not have any incoming edge is my minimal element, and the element that do not have any outgoing edge is my maximal element. Now, the element is a minimal element if is the least element, if it can relate to all other elements and no one can relate it back unless itself. So here the diagram that I have drawn, or the poset that we are considering, minimal element and the least element are the same. However, if we consider the poset excluding this null set, then you can see 1, 2, 3, these 3 elements will not have any incoming edge. That means these 3 will be my minimal elements. But there is no least element, because least element should have the property that that particular element should be related to every other, but one is not related to 2. So if we eliminate this null set from the set of power sets that we consider, the poset that we get have 3 minimal elements but no least element. That is the difference. So let us proceed with, so here the least and the greatest elements are null set and 1, 2, 3. The similar property is valid here. Let's say that arrow is a poset and has a least or greatest element, then that element is unique. Let us prove it by proving that if it is a least element that is unique, the greatest element will be proven in similar vein. So suppose that element, assume for the contradiction that element is not unique. So I have 2 least elements. If I have 2 least elements, let's say those 2 least elements are L1 and L2. Since this is a relation which is a partial order, therefore I have L1 related to L2, because for L1 to be minimal element, or rather L2 to be minimal element, L1 to be least element, I have L1 related to any other elements. So L2 is one of them, so L1 is related to L2. And I am thinking that L2 is also my minimum element, so L2 comma L1 should also be inside this relation. So L1 comma L2 is also there, L2 comma L1 is also there. But it's a poset, so due to anti-symmetry, these two should be same. So that completes my proof that there could not be 2 different least elements. Similarly, there could not be 2 different greatest element in the poset. Lower bound. So lower bound is basically defined by a subset of the original set. So I say that I declared a relation rho as a partial order relation over set A. Then I took a subset of the elements from the set A and create a set B. Then an element X belongs to A is called a lower bound of B. If for all element present in that B, I have a particular relation from X to B. So let us try to understand it more clearly. What we are trying to say is that we are creating a subset B from the set of elements in A. Now, that subset that we have created may be such that I just created with few elements from the overall set A. So the lower bound is the least element considering all the elements that are present in B. So I am using the lower bound formula, but now I am trying to lower bound not everyone in A, but the elements that are only present in B. So that we call, so this X may not be the least element for A, but this X is the lower bound. We call it lower bound because it is the element from where every other elements in the subset can be related. Let us take the dual definition upper bound. Again, we are constructing a subset B where every element in this subset B can relate to an element in A, all of them. So see that Y may or may not be the greatest element in A. I am reiterating, Y may or may not be the greatest element in A. To be the greatest element in A, Y should also relate to all possible elements are there in A, but B is a subset. B does not contain all elements in A. I only care about the elements that are there in B can have a relation to this Y or not. If that is the case, I will say that this subset is upper bounded by the element Y in A. Greatest lower bound. You can already assume from the name that it's a lower bound which is greatest. That means an element X dash is called a greatest lower bound. First of all, X dash should be lower bound of the subset B. So all the elements in B should have a relation from X going. So consider of a directed edge going from X to all other elements in B in the Hasse diagram. And if for all other lower bounds that are present for B, so B could have multiple lower bounds because the lower bound of B only considers an element from X from where I can just reach to any element of B. So this reach is not just the direct cover but any relation. So via transitive there could be many elements relating to all the elements in B. But for all other lower bounds, the other lower bounds that I get, I am the higher or I am reachable from them via some path. So it says that arrow is a poset and an element X dash is the greatest lower bound if X dash is a lower bound of B. That part is as per this definition. And if every other lower bound that we can found, I can have a relation from those lower bounds to myself. So I am the greatest one. So I am already pointed by everyone. So that's why I am the greatest lower bound that B may have. So this is called the greatest lower bound, or in short, it is GLB, and we will use this GLB everywhere. Least upper bound, again, Y dash is an least upper bound for the subset B in A. So I have constructed a subset and all the elements here are upper bounded by Y dash. So from all elements here, I have some path to reach to Y dash through Hasse diagram. Now I say that if there are other elements too, where from all elements of B I can reach, then those other elements can also be reached from this Y dash element. So Y dash is the least upper bound that I can consider of. All other elements are above Y dash. Example. Consider the poset again and try to visualize the Hasse diagram that we have drawn. So let B is a subset containing 1, 2 and 1, 2 elements. So what will be upper bounds for this particular subset? You see 1, 2 is an upper bound because from 1 I can have 1, 2. From 2 I can reach 1, 2. From 1, 2 directly I can reach 1, 2. 1, 2, 3 is also an upper bound because 1, 2 can reach up to 1, 2, 3 in the Hasse diagram. From 1, 2 I can reach up to 1, 2, 3. However, 1, 2 is the least upper bound because 1, 2, 3 can be related from 1, 2. So that's why this is the least element which acts as an upper bound. We call it as a least upper bound. See that this least upper bound is located inside B. Obviously, it is part of A because all the elements are subset of A. So this is an element of A. But interestingly, it is also an element of B. However, you can see that the lower bound for this the lower bound for this is null. 1 cannot be a lower bound for everyone because 2 is not related to 1 at all. 2 cannot be a lower bound because 1 is not related to 2. 3 cannot be a lower bound, neither of them is related. So therefore, lower bound for this particular B is only null set or phi. And this lower bound is greatest lower bound because no other lower bound from which this can be reached. So this is the greatest lower bound that we can consider. No other lower bound from where I can reach this one. So the interesting observation here is that though the greatest upper bound or the least upper bound LUB is present in the set B, the greatest lower bound may not be in the set B itself. It may belongs to set A but not in set B. Okay. So just to iterate that, think in the Hasse diagram. Just let us go back and just consider the Hasse diagram to discuss. So think in the Hasse diagram, if I do not have any incoming edge in this particular node, so a directed edge means I have relation from this node to the direction wise pointing node. So A comma B, if there is an edge from A to B. So if there is no incoming edge, all those elements are minimal. If there is no outgoing edge, all those elements are maximal. If there is no incoming edge and all of the other elements are related from this, not by direct edge, but by via transitive relations, then this is the least element. Similarly, the greatest element. Now I try to define a subset, let's say 1, 2 and 1, 2 subset. 1, 2 and 1, 2 subsets is upper bounded by 1, 2 as well as 1, 2, 3. So these are my upper bounds. Among them, least or the lowest part is 1, 2. So 1, 2 is the least upper bound. And in the subset 1, 2, 3, it belongs there. So the subset B I constructed, it belongs there. However, the lower bound, you can easily see that from where I can reach 1, 2, 1 and 2, these 3 elements, there is only one position which is the null set. And this is the greatest lower bound in that case. If there are others, so the others will point here. This is the greatest lower bound. So that is the whole essence of having this. Now if A row is a poset and B is a subset of A, B has at most one least upper bound and greatest lower bound. So this should be GLB, greatest lower bound. This is a mistake, just correct it. This should be GLB. So let us try to think about proving the one set. It is very straightforward, as I have shown you. It has at most one least upper bound. Okay. So it should not be more than one. If it have, so you just try to prove it by contradiction, assuming that there are more than one least upper bound and see what happens. This will be a pretty straightforward one. Okay. Just try it yourself. I give it as an exercise. It's very straightforward. If you understand the previous proofs, it is very straightforward to do. So since we declared greatest lower bound and least upper bounds, now we declared a concept called lattice. After declaring this lattice concept, I will tell you 1, 2 examples where this is used, basically why we are studying all this and why this is used. So let us first define it. So a lattice is a poset, obviously, for which every pair of elements has a least upper bound and a greatest lower bound. Remember that least upper bound and greatest lower bound is defined over a subset in the previous case. So if I have a subset B, I am defining someone which is greatest and it is lower bounding all the elements of that subset. Lower bounding all the elements of that subset, and someone is least which is upper bounding all the elements of that subset. Now here I am saying that there is no concept of subset, but any pair I choose, these two pair must have reached via relations or via some path in the Hasse diagram to the least upper bound, and from the greatest lower bound these pairs can be reached, both of them. So then only that poset is considered to be a lattice. And a lattice is complete in which every subset of element has a least upper bound and a greatest upper bound. Instead of saying that two pair of elements, if I say every subset, then it is said a complete lattice. Example, less than equal to relation over the set of natural numbers. So any pair of elements you take, 4, 9, the max is where I reach as a, so the 9 would be my least upper bound. All the other elements more than 9 are also my upper bound, the least one is 9. The greatest lower bound is the minimum of them, because all the element less than that belongs to the natural number set are my lower bounds, but the greatest among them is the minimum. So x minus 1, if x and y, x is the minimum element, x is less than y, then let's say x minus 1 is also a lower bound, but it's not the greatest one. Subset, we have already seen that for any two elements, the least upper bound is the union. Correct? 1, 2, if I take and 1, 1, 2 and 1, then 1, 2 union 1, which is 1, 2 again, is the least upper bound. I can take any other elements and form a bigger set. That will also be an upper bound, where the elements of A and B are present, but the least, that is not the least. Greatest lower bound is the intersection. So we call this as a lattice. And if you think carefully, this is a complete lattice as well. I left it to you to think about why the complete lattice is happening, to choose all possible subsets and try to see that it is a complete lattice. X divides y. If x is related to y, x divides y, where x, y are taken from positive integers, is a lattice. Because the division relation allows you to think that the least upper bound would be the LCM. It is upper bounded by definitely the LCM of the number, and that is the least, because any multiple of the LCM is just in the Hasse diagram, you are going above with that relation. Greatest lower bound is the GCD of those two numbers. You can intuitively see this, why it happens. The poset which is not a lattice, see, I want that every pair of elements have a least upper bound and a greatest lower bound to both exist in it. If I can find any one of them is not present, either some upper bound is not present or some greatest upper bound is not present, then only it is not qualified. Greatest lower bound is not present or some lower bound is not present, any one of them. So to both exist forms it as a lattice. So therefore the subset of all sets, that is the power set of S, if I take a subset Q which is not null and all proper subsets, so I eliminate 1, 2, 3, the whole subset and the null subset, and take the poset relation which is less than, which is subset equal to. So Q contains now 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. These are and 2, 3. These are its set of subsets, because I do not consider null and I do not consider 1, 2, 3. Now see that this relation with subset is not anymore a lattice, because the pair of elements 1, 2 and 1, 3 do not have a least upper bound. Because 1, 2, 3 is not there in this set, so there is no least upper bound. There are many upper bounds. Okay, there are many upper bounds, but there is no least upper bounds. Okay, and similarly, elements 1 and 2 do not have greatest lower bound. So there are maximal elements in this set. 1, 2 is a maximal element, 1, 3 is a maximal element, 3 maximal elements are there. Similarly, 3 minimal elements are there, but it's not a lattice. So with that, let me just tell you 1, 2 areas where we need it. So you see, the whole formation of lattice is to bring up a structure and is to bring up a particular partial order, starting from a least element to a greatest element. That you can already figure out from the Hasse diagram. Now consider a very basic example of your program. When you write a program, there are different paths of execution, as we have already seen when we illustrate this program, analyze the program using logic. So each path starts from a point, and that variables takes on evolving over each statement, which we call as transformations. And the variable evolves and reaches to a conclusion, giving an output. So there could be multiple paths starting from initial point, that is the start of the program, till you end the program or a function. So these all paths, if you draw it, it has a relationship. So let's say I am modifying the variable y which is dependent on x. So therefore x is dependent on y. If I say this dependence relationship, it gives you a partial order in this whole program, that which variable is being dependent on which variable. Now if I try to reason about certain behaviors of the program, logical reasoning is one of the way that we did to see the correctness or what we intend is happening or not. There are other thing called program abstractions and program analysis techniques which uses this lattice kind of a structure to analyze the same. So this is very widely used in all the programs that you see which are verified and used, ranging from aircrafts to your automotives, which are in commonplace to your mobiles everywhere. So the software or the programs are verified using this kind of basic algebraic structure and the properties of this algebraic structure. So if you are interested, you may dig down to this program analysis domain to find suitable applications of lattice. So in this lecture, we have summarized that instead of having only equivalence among the set of elements, we could also define certain order. So it is not an equivalent, it is not bidirectional, but it says or it projects an order of relation, and that relation governs us with some minimal, maximal element, lower bounds and all that. And it forms a structure which is lattice and which has practical applications. Thank you.